on the PWR app, on your smart speakers, on the website, and of course on DAB digital radio across Pembrokeshire right now this Monday evening. Now coming up, it will be local rugby first in part one. We're going to be chatting to Jonathan Jones, JJ, who knows a thing or two about the game here in the county, having been District H chairman up until last September. We'll get his thoughts on his time in that role and his views on the state of the game right now in the county and nationally as well. And we'll look back on a busy weekend of West Wales Cup football for Pembrokeshire's sides. We'll check in with the indoor cricket, and with winter approaching, we want to know whether it's time to maximise those 4G surfaces we have in the county to make sure we get as much football action as possible over the next few months. But let's get going. It was a wet weekend across the county. Gordon Thomas, how are you?
I'm very good, Ben, and yourself?
Yeah, not bad at all. Did the weather stop you getting out and about?
I hampered it. It didn't stop it. That was the main thing. I got down to the Orbs and watched the Holders Hakin United beat Drivach, and then popped across the road to watch Milford Haven beat Cardigan. So yeah, it was a good afternoon. I spoilt for choice through rugby and football, to be honest with you.
Indeed, and it was rugby that won for Fraser, and it sounded a good game between Narberth Athletic and Haverfordwest. We had reaction in the first hour, Fraser, but it also sounded really windy on Saturday.
Yeah, mate, you talk about the rain there. I arrived there in bright sunshine, and within a few minutes during the warm-up, I genuinely wondered if it was going to kick off on time. It was biblical. I was hiding up in the top stand corner, not because I was in Narberth, but because I was afraid of the elements. So, but no, they did get away, and it was a good game in the end. So yeah, I enjoyed that.
And Tom, no problem at the Oggy Bridge Meadow, which is where you were, because they've got that 4G surface now, haven't they? So they carry on.
It was perfect. That downpour came and the boys just carried on warming up. It was great. And then my heart was warmed up by looking at the first and seconds of Broadhaven scoring whoppers in the 3rd and 5th division of the football.
All right. Well, local football to come in part two, and we'll have a look at those West Wales Cup matches as well. But let's get to our first guest tonight on the show. And as I say, it is JJ, Jonathan Jones, who has been chair of the District H region for the last 2 years, up until September last year. He's on the show to tell us a bit more about how he's enjoying this season. JJ, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you guys?
We are all good. So 2 years as District H chairman, finished in September, as you say, last year. How was that, and how are you finding it now that you're not in that role and you can watch rugby in a slightly different capacity?
To be honest, I'm enjoying the peace. After I spent, once I finished playing for Fishguard all those years, I spent a lot of time coaching. Then I went straight from coaching into the committee. I was chairman of Fishguard for 8 years, and then during that time, then I became chairman for 2 years of the district. So now I'm just being dad, which is quite nice.
Look, for people watching, Jade. For people who are watching at the moment who might not know what District H means and the patch that you cover, tell us about it. What did that role involve, and what was it like being chairman?
Well, it involved chairing the meetings of all the clubs, all the way from Aberystwyth, all the way down to South County, down to Tenby, so all the what you call the old school Pembrokeshire teams, and then plus then you got Cardigan and Aberaeron and Aberystwyth. So, we dealt with all things that dealt with Pembrokeshire Rugby, dealt with District H Rugby, and then also Pembrokeshire Cup, which, as you all know, was quite challenging last year. But, yeah, chairing those meetings and just being a part and just sharing everybody's ideas and trying to move the game on in Pembrokeshire, really.
I'm sure some questions from the guys in just a sec. Final one for me for now. Was it a challenge? Because you're talking there about clubs of all different sizes, all different interests, different abilities as well. So was that a challenge to bring them all together and look for a consensus as chair?
Yeah, I think the main thing there is making sure that every club had a voice. I know some clubs are bigger clubs, some clubs play higher standard, and the important thing that I wanted during my time, and I'm sure that everybody has, the previous chairman and the previous committee members. What we want is that everybody has a voice, everybody's a part of every decision, and that Pembrokeshire is, we're a little bit out on a limb out here, aren't we? So we need to make sure that Cardiff don't forget about us, and that we have a district and we have a voice, and that all the clubs within that district have a voice, because not everything goes the way of all the clubs, with whether it be cup draws or league. There's been a lot of changes in the league structure which didn't suit everybody. So it was quite difficult to make sure that our feelings in Pembrokeshire trickled all the way up to the top guys in Cardiff. Not everybody, was probably pleased with some of the decisions that were made when the leagues are restructured, and it was difficult at first, but I think we just had to get on with it, really.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to the guys. Fraser.
JJ, good to see you again, mate. I mean,
Hi, mate.
as someone obviously been so involved in District H for the last 9 years too as chairman, and of course you still watch locally now. I think your boys play for Milford Haven and Fishguard respectively, if I got that right.
Yeah.
So how, as someone who's been involved so long, what's your outlook on it at the moment? Because I've reported on a couple of Pembrokeshire games I've really enjoyed this year. Derbies, Neyland, Milford, Haverfordwest and Narberth Athletic on Saturday. Good crowds, what we talked about for so long, full-blooded. But those are derbies, you expect them to be like that. There has been obviously some concern elsewhere. You look at Whitland on Saturday, Division 2 side, not going to Abereyron, couldn't raise a side for the second consecutive week. Langham have rallied a bit, but they went successive fixtures, not being able to raise a side. We saw Crimmy Seconds having to rearrange on Saturday against Tenby. How do you feel the outlook is around here at the moment?
There's definitely less players playing than when we, I'm a bit older than you, Fraser, but there's a lot of less players playing the game now at senior level and also at junior level. There's no way of skirting around that. Obviously now I've got my eldest Robbie plays for Milford. He lives in Milford now. He plays for Milford, not Fishguard. So Milford is a sort of new club to me. It's been, different having played down there just to support on the side. But I've been lucky in that this year, you mentioned them already. I've seen Milford play Haverfordwest twice in the Premiership Cup and in the league. One in Milford at the Orbs and one up in Harford. The Milford Neyland game was jam-packed. Saturday there was quite a good support from Cardigan came down to Milford. Those games have been decent games and have been competitive and have been well supported. Obviously, it's difficult for me to comment on other clubs, and I know there's some clubs are struggling a little bit, but there's no doubt about it. There's definitely less players playing the game. I think my youngest now, Toby's 14. He plays for Fish under 14, so bless him, he's on crutches at the moment. He's got injured in the first game of the season, but I see the teams around Pembrokeshire, and his age group is quite a strong age group. There's quite a lot of sides, but gone are the days where every club has got to sevens all the way to youth. I can look back when there wasn't junior rugby wasn't a thing when I was a kid. We played in school and that was it. But I started coaching at 23, and a lot of the players that came through, I could see most clubs had under 7s, under 8s, under 9s, under 10s, etc. But not many clubs do now. They they miss an age group or whatever. So there's definitely less players, which can be a problem. Although the flip side of that, this year you've had teams like Haverfordwest. Fishguard a game last week in St David's. Milford had a few second team games. So the clubs are trying. Clubs are trying to get other games there for the boys.
Yeah, talking about that, Johnny, I think I've connected that your son is Robbie Jones, plays fullback for Milford Haven. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
I could see he's got your speed as well. He's a really good player. Fair play. He played well on Saturday.
Yeah, he's a tidy boy. He played full back for most of it. He's played a bit of centre as well. This year he's played wing, centre and full back, but full back is his favourite position.
Yeah. My point is, Johnny, you're talking about the good old days. Well, I was part of the good old days, just before you probably, because I am a dinosaur. What do we do to make participation more? Because what we're up against is a lot of kids playing football at 16 to 18. When I was in school, we weren't allowed to play football. We weren't allowed to play football at all, but we played rugby all the way through. Welsh Rugby's going through a really, really tough period this moment in time, as you've seen that as District H chairman. So how would you see it sort of moving forward? How can we get more numbers playing more youth rugby and more senior rugby? We're doing okay in Pembrokeshire, but how can we sort of improve on it?
My personal view, I think we got to start in schools. I don't think the schools play as much rugby as when I was a child, or even, I'm looking. They're playing a bit more. I've noticed Toby now, my 14-year-old, is playing a bit more than Robbie did when he was in school. But the biggest own goal, in my opinion, is that we've had hub offices in Pembrokeshire, and now the WRU have slashed them. And that is absolute. I just cannot believe You know, if you're trying to grow the game and get more players playing, and then the coaches on the coal face like that who have an opportunity to bring new players in, make sure games are played. You can't be all on the PE teachers now. Like back in the day, you only played rugby in school. You know, played a bit of cricket, did athletics. You didn't have football. You didn't have all the other things that they do now, which is fine. But I think losing hub officers is it's just a massive own goal. To use a football phrase, particularly in Pembrokeshire. It's not nobody's fault apart from the WRU. And I just cannot believe that when you're trying to grow the game and they're saying the standards are dropping, that you're getting rid of an asset or a resource that can help bolster that.
We spoke last week on this programme, actually, John, about concerns about the obviously WRU proposals. Now, unfortunately, something drastic has to be done because of the financial situation. I don't think there's any getting around that. No. But for this area of Pembrokeshire in particular, if it was, God forbid, the Scarlets to be cut, or if there's two teams in the West becomes one, would you worry about the opportunity for players down here to make the professional games? Obviously, that's a very much streamlined process now to get to the top level.
That would worry me greatly, Fraser, to be honest, because if you think about it, you know, the Scarlets is the nearest region to us. It's hard. We've got really good players in Pembrokeshire that don't, for one reason or another, don't actually make it when some are good enough. Whether it's with Two West or whether they don't get picked up on, I don't know. You know. However, if the Scarlets were to go, then all of a sudden we're further away again.
And on the flip side, and you've probably been close to this with your junior coaching, maybe I don't know what system Robbie may have gone through as well, but a player's been put into academies too early, John. You know, I'm looking now, and it's almost like they're hand-picking people, you know, almost based on physicality and size at a very young age, and not really giving players allowed to develop. You don't see many late developers anymore. You know,
you don't.
To the people who came up 15, 16, maybe at a growth bit, improve skills in their late teenage years and make it. Are we farming these players into academies too early in age?
I think so, and also putting expectations on bulking up. You know, their size. You know, I coach youth rugby for nigh on 10 years of Fishguard. I saw a lot of good players throughout the county, a lot of good sides, a lot of good players who probably could have gone further, didn't for one reason or another. But some that did actually get into these academies immediately felt pressure. They needed to bulk up, they need to do this, they need to do that. And I feel that the focus went from skill levels to size and bulking to a certain extent. You know, it's not, you know, I'm only going on what I've heard from people that I know and players that I know within Pembrokeshire. But I know for a fact, because I know some personally, where some players were told they need to put 2-3 stone on, they do this, they do that. And in a couple of instances, and I'm not going to name the players because a couple of them played with Robbie at district level, a couple of them, it probably ended what could have been a professional career or not, close to a professional career, because they lost, I would say, lost an edge, lost a bit of pace, lost a yard of pace, because they bulked up and they did that another. And, you know, some people who are listening to this tonight might know some of the players I'm on about, but there's a couple of players who are around Robbie's age, a year above, the same age, year below, who are quality players and I think were good enough to push that level, but they were forced to bulk up and there's no other way around it.
No, I'm glad you brought that point of view up, actually, Johnny. It is a lot of emphasis on, I call them gym monkeys these days.
Yeah,
they do a lot
100%.
of, training in the gym to bulk up, as you said.
Yeah.
In our day, I was pleased to say that we were coached, but we weren't coached to the degree where we weren't following a game plan. We knew what to do in certain situations. And players with flair and speed were let to do whatever they could do on that given day, whether it came off or whether it didn't. Do you think we've lost the flair of the game in Wales? We've gone to this physicality game, looking at South Africa, the New Zealanders. We're a smaller generation. We got to get around them, not through them and bounce off them. I think we got the wrong idea.
100%. Overcoaching. Too many systems, planning so many phases ahead, and you're coaching. You're coaching flair out of players. I'm gonna mention one player you guys probably know well, who I coached from a young boy, James Griffiths, Jiffy Griffiths. No longer obviously retired now due to injury. Played flanker for me as a kid, played outside half, played a bit of everything, brilliant, amazing talent. He went on, he went on to play for Llanelli, the club side then, had one season there, and I know for a fact that they felt, I'm not saying he was a loose cannon, but I know he came back because basically he didn't play the game plan and he wasn't used to that because he was used to playing with a bit of flair. And I don't want to diss any other clubs or anything like that, but I know for a fact that was one of the main reasons why he came back to Fishguard, because he didn't feel he could play and really display his attributes.
What's the answer then, JJ? Is it educating coaches? Does it start at the very top from the WRU? What is the answer there? Because it's a fascinating debate.
It's got to start at the top. It's got to start at the top because if you look, I've got a couple of Kiwi mates who live over here in Fishguard, and I have a couple of Kiwi mates who paid in Fishguard who back live in New Zealand, and everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet. Everybody, everything comes from the top. So whatever they want to achieve at the top level, that's what they're coaching at a lower level. I know there's, when you've got big men, look at, I watched that game between Ireland and New Zealand the night, and some of the handling of some of those big men, on the Irish side as well, got nothing against that at all. However, if you just go in for collision all the time, I just feel you're losing out on, particularly a nation like ours, where we haven't got so much physicality, we haven't got that size, but we got plenty of players with that yard of pace, that little something who can open up defences, but they're either not getting an opportunity, or maybe they've been coached out to them, and not being allowed to flourish, not being allowed to play like that. I don't know.
It's generating some great comments, and we're having loads of them left on the Facebook page, and we'll read through all of them. Generally around the fact that there is no clear pathway, as you've all said, but there are clubs that I think thriving is the right word. There are clubs doing well and still putting teams out. I know we have issues, as we've said, around fulfilling some cup matches, JJ. So is it fair to say that the basics are there, and actually rugby isn't in a bad shape in the county? It just needs refining. Would that be fair to say from your time as an administrator of the game?
There's a lot of good people in all the clubs in Pembrokeshire doing their very best to keep their clubs alive, to keep the conveyor belt of players coming through, and doing a lot of good work. I've seen over the years, as I said, yes, you don't have many second team games now, although there's been more this season, and there's definitely less players. However, the ones who are playing are dedicated, and the clubs are behind them 100%. I just think we need to get more rugby at schoolboy level. So these boys are coming through youth level, playing youth rugby, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the best years of your life, playing youth rugby. And those boys then take that step to go forward and play senior rugby, and are not lost. They haven't gone to play football at 17, 18. They've gone on or finished playing altogether. They've gone on to play rugby at a senior level for their club. I don't think there's a magic answer, but there's a lot of good people doing their very best in Pembrokeshire.
Yeah, you've made a valid point there as far as I'm concerned. I mean, Welsh schools rugby's in a terrible state, let's be honest. Let's pick the bones of it. I was lucky to come through the system, so was Fraser. And, it's just incredible. Welsh, we'll always have talent in Wales. We've got a lot of talent, but it's engaging them into playing rugby. Schools need to do a lot more, definitely now. I know the PE teachers have given it to the hub officers. They've been slashed. We spoke about that. But we still need to get a system right in school so that they come through then to youth level. There's no longer any Welsh youth caps or anything anymore. Yeah. That's gone. Yeah. I know they've been substituted with academies, but we know that doesn't actually work as well as what it did in that system. My particular youth team that I played in, I can count 7 internationals from the side I played in that played senior rugby. But, it's just, and the school setup, there was at least another 5 or 6 there. That's a complete team, basically. That's gone.
Yeah, and following on from what Gordon's saying there, JJ, I agree with that. And as a head teacher, I wondered this. The curriculum for me in schools seems a lot broader now. Now, obviously, that's a positive thing in many ways. It's being taught a wider variety of sports, and there's more emphasis on health and well-being and that sort of thing. But I can't help feel that's diluted rugby in schools, and you look at in secondary schools in particular now, the the role of a PE teacher seems to have changed. I grew up with, you talk about people like Di Davis, Gareth Thomas from Fishguard, JJ Noel, Gelly James. These were rugby men teaching PE teachers. I don't get that impression now. Is that a fair comment?
100%. The names you mentioned there now, I've mentioned Di Davis. He's actually my chair governor's phrase. He's my chair governor in school. He had grandsons in my school. But, you're looking there, I thought I came through Wayne Harris. Gelly was my district coach in school, in the 17 and 19 school in Pembrokeshire. There's a lot of guys you're talking there, dedicated PE rugby people. Yes, the curriculum is broader. That makes it more difficult. And I understand that. It's easy for me as a primary school teacher to say that because we do a bit of everything. And it's probably a bit easier. But the demands on the PE teacher at secondary school level now are different. I get that. This is why the hub officer role was vital, really.
Well, listen, JJ, absolute pleasure to have you on and to hear you talking so passionately about rugby in Pembrokeshire. It's great. You had 9 years, I think, on the District H committee, you were saying, and that the 2 as chairman that ended in September. What was, final question, what's your kind of legacy? What was your highlight in that role, would you say?
Oh, I don't know. Highlight? I'll tell you what one of my highlights was. My first year, I actually got to present my own son with a medal in the plate in the plate final. That was a nice thing. And I will say, I'm going to give a shout out for Johnny Evans at Tenby, who has been vital in trying to reinvigorate the Pembrokeshire Cup. He did a lot of good work there, and I think the introduction of the plate, because there's such a vast difference in the levels in Pembrokeshire of the clubs, is keeping everything in interest. Last year was difficult because there were a lot of games called off, etc., for one reason or another. And then with the debacle of the cup final, which I'm not going to get into tonight, I'll let you my opinions about that. However, this year, all the games I believe have been played. All the first round games have been played. As a legacy, I don't know. I wanted every to have a voice, every to feel a part of it, and know that as far as clubs are concerned, Pembrokeshire, the Pembrokeshire District H Committee, Pembrokeshire and District H is the official title, then that committee was for everybody, not just for Fishguard, because my old club, or for Millsbridge, my son plays here, or for Narberth or whatever. It was for everybody. So every club has a voice, and that is what I tried to do. Whether I succeed in, I don't know, but I think I did my best.
Top man. Well, listen, I think Pembrokeshire Rugby is definitely stronger for having voices like yours involved. So thank you very much for your time tonight, JJ. We'll catch up again, no doubt. Thank you for being with us on Pure West Sport. We're going to come back for the second part of tonight's show in just a few moments.
Eaton-Evans and Morris Solicitors have